so excited to share with you today the subject for my bullet journal or my reading journal. I had so much fun with this and I'm so proud of how it all turned out. So the theme of the month is map making. That's right, I decided to do maps this month and I have got no writing in it other than just some minor tiny things that don't need elaborate text, thank goodness, because I think it was driving me a little bit nuts. I do, however, do flags, so that's really fun. I really enjoyed doing that. And even better, I basically went for a really basic format, so I have just inked map drawings compared to the usual elaborate paintings, but I did colour the flags in and I did colour in the compass points just because I wanted something to pop and I didn't want it to be all totally plain. So that was my exciting thing, all in like a splurge of 30 seconds. Well, I have to say, I know I've just splurged and said I really enjoyed it, but I genuinely did enjoy doing the map drawing. I've learnt so many new things. I will link the how to make a fantasy map in the description below, and this chap that does it, he does a series of map making tutorials. I really enjoyed it and I had so much fun. Just in case you're wondering how I created my islands, I actually knew about this before I did the little mini map making course. I basically got some lentils and threw the lentils on the page and I drew around the lentils, which sound really bizarre, but it's so much easier than trying to imagine how it's going to work, and it gave you kind of loads of different options, which I really enjoyed, and added different islands in. So that's how I did that. Also, by the way, fun story, I've been saving this all up from last month. After I finished painting and doing my reading journal last month, I decided that I would let my paints dry. Now, this isn't normally a problem. I just leave it on my desk and they can just sit there and dry. But for some reason, I don't know why, I decided to move them and put them on top of the washing machine. I then forgot that they were on the washing machine. We put a wash on and my husband was like, do you know one or two of your paints on the floor? I'm like, really? And then realised that the washing machine had been shaking so much that the whole palette had fallen on the floor, and not only was everything discombobulated, but one of the pans had actually not only gone behind the washing machine, but there was a space behind the washing machine where, because we've just had the area plastered, it went under the washing machine, this pan. So there's me and my husband trying to get this little paint pan out from underneath this weird plaster thing, and I was really thinking in my head, don't be an Indiana Jones, don't be an Indiana Jones where all the spiders and the insects are being. Thankfully it wasn't, because I really just didn't like that. That's the bit in Indiana Jones that I really don't like, but I rescued it. All the paints are fine, thank goodness. I did have to wash the paint, which sounds really weird, but at least it's painted. Anyway, that was my funny story over. I thought I'd put it in there right at the beginning. It will keep you entertained, because pretty much with the map making, what you see is what you get. And when you look at it from a distance, because I'm looking this now on a different screen, I really like the way it all worked out. I did try with the trying to make it obvious that the country is different to the sea by having these little waves going around the different islands. I kind of like that, but I liked the last way that I do on the last page much better, but that's a bit more intensive. And I'd already spent a long time drawing these maps out. Trust me on this when I say that drawing of these maps took the longest amount of time. What you're seeing today is actually just the quick, easy bit, which is great. So moving on from my April title page, I'm now on my tracking page. I've got the tracking page where I want it this month rather than the wrong way round. And with this, I decided to do a full-on 2-page full map drawing with my little tracking squares just overlaying it, and thankfully I didn't get anything wrong in the wrong place, so bonus points for me today. It's funny how many times, it's because I'm quite careless, and I fully admit that I'm quite careless and very forgetful, and you'll probably see when we look at the very end that I did forget a couple of things, and in fact I had to redo my little flip through at the very end because I hadn't realised I hadn't finished the last page. I thought I had, but obviously I hadn't. I'll tell you more about that in a second. So with this page, I decided to add in a couple of words. Well, when I say words, I should really say place titles, place names, ocean names and things, just to give it a little bit of je ne sais quoi. I probably could have spent a lot longer doing this page. In fact, I could have spent a lot longer doing all the pages, but because I was aware that I had to do 4 different maps and I had very limited time, considering how limited my time was, I feel like I did really well. And it's really hard, by the way, making names up, and I probably would have put way more detail on if I hadn't known that I had the little squares and that it would cover some things as well. But I'm very proud of some things. By the way, Random Lentils created a boat-shaped island for me, which I found highly entertaining. And that's why you can see, I think it's like I wrote Shipbuilders Isle, because I thought, oh, all the shipbuilders are going to live there because it's a island that looks like a ship, and that is totally natural. That's not just me drawing it. I also really like the way the cliffs turned out. That was something that I learned that was very new, and I really enjoyed giving lots of cliff edges on. I had to resist the urge actually to just do all of it cliff edges because it did look really good, but I did restrain myself, thankfully, from doing that. And again, I'm really proud of this. I'm really proud of the way it worked out. I love the way the mountains go, and we've got little chain lakes, and it's called Chain Lake, of course. I don't think I've written that in yet. Yes, I have. I learned that other thing where when you're drawing it or penciling it all in, write in what exactly you're going to call these place names, so you can always move the place names to make it fit better. So that's something I've learned. And I also kept in the little flags at the very bottom. That just says April, just in case you're wondering what that said, and that's exactly the same on the previous page. It just again adds a little bit of a pop, and it wouldn't have been very interesting. I mean, actually, having said that, I really like the black and white style, and I was so tempted to just paint this entire thing in, but I again restrained myself because this was already taking like 3 or 4 hours, and that's including the pencil drawing. So I didn't want to take too much time. This is supposed to be a journal, not a sketchbook, which it kind of is in many ways for me because I am very bad, and you're supposed to do sketches in a sketchbook first and then you do your main piece. I more than often than not don't do that, and I experiment as I'm drawing it into the book, which I much prefer. There is no right or wrong way really to do it, but there are some mistakes I've made in some of what I've done that I could have easily corrected if I'd actually sketched it out beforehand rather than just throwing myself in there and just doing this all in one sketch. Also, as usual, I decided to add in a little bit of metallic colour. I'm really loving these Papermate metallic pens. They were so worth them. Well, I say they were so worth it. They were actually a Christmas gift, but I've really enjoyed using them. I really enjoy the colours, and I fully admit I love a bit of shiny, so it works well again. And as you can see, I decided to do with the lakes as well, because I don't think I put lakes in the previous page. I just drew little lines to just signify that they're somehow a little bit different. I also fully admit that when I was flipping through the run through a second time after having fixed the last page, I also realised that I missed doing my little waves around on the top right hand side. I'm like, I'm just gonna leave it like that. It will remind me to remember that I need to remember stuff. So this is the next page. This is what I call my Tabura page and my red page, and because I had issues last month in writing stuff down because I think I pretty much covered it in paint and I don't want to wreck my nibs, I decided that I would do just the lower part of a little map with the flags at the top, and I did have to move the flags down as well, so you can probably see the outline of the flags, and I did move them down. And that was fine again. I really enjoyed having this lower half map, and you can see the changes I'm already making and progressing in my journal as I've gone from my very first map to this being my third map. And again, the temptation to paint was really strong, but I restrained myself. I also like the way how the Bearpaw archipelago worked, because that again was totally random and I really loved the way that worked. I loved putting all different kinds of things in, and I loved having the flags again. It was so nice having something that took so little time. There was a slight disaster with the border, because as you can see on the first page, I had a little black and white border, and that's supposed to signify a measurement on the map. You'll probably see it on most maps, and I totally forgot about that on the middle map, and I thought I can put it in on this one, so I did. And then I experimented with a really thick pen and just did it kind of like with my chisel pen. It wasn't a mistake, but it was really wobbly, and so I'm like, well, I'll just leave it like that. Again, it's a lesson learned. If you decide to do something like that, it might be easier to colour it in, and also to make sure the measures are correct, because I couldn't actually see where the dots were, so I couldn't draw the lines properly. So that was my own fault, because the angle I'm at when I'm recording, I'll hit my head on the camera because the camera's quite low overhead. So if you can imagine trying to draw it, that's why the lines, I gave up with drawing lines with a ruler, because it was just really difficult to do the lines and not see them and try and work around the camera. So don't forget to use a ruler. By the way, I wanted to share with you another fun fact about maps. This is something I learned about 20 odd years ago when I was at university, and that probably tells you how old I am. I just sound really young. And that is that if you look at a lot of medieval European maps, I'm talking about European, the Western European specifically, a lot of them have Jerusalem as the centre of the map, and that's because they believe that Jerusalem was the centre of the world, just like they believe that Earth was the centre of the universe rather than the sun being the centre of the solar system. And that's very interesting, because if you look at the medieval maps, they tell you how to get places, but not how we imagine they would be. And let's be honest, the maps that they make are absolutely gorgeous. You've got so many different things, so many different creatures and decorations. I really admire their imagination. I mean, granted, they actually believe that some of these creatures were actually there. The most amusing one in my mind is that of this headless man with the eyes in the chest. That's really hilarious. I admit I didn't draw any creatures or anything on my maps. I kept them very simple. But if I had to do this again, I probably would do that. But I don't have that kind of time, because I think I could probably spend at least an easy 10 hours doing this, and it would look hopefully amazing. And it's so easy in some ways to draw it. You'd be so surprised, seriously, at how to draw it. And I really highly recommend having a go and seeing what you can produce, because it was a lot of fun. So as you can see, I've rambled on enough that we are actually on the last map, and I think this might be my favourite map, mostly because of what I did with the ocean. It sounds really weird when I say that, but instead of drawing gentle curved outlines around the islands just to signify the waves, I do something different. As you can see on the very far right hand side, you can see just these broken lines in straight lines, and that's basically what I do to the entire island. I momentarily paused here because I realised that I probably should paint the flags in now so they have time to dry while I'm drawing other things, so I don't have to wait a million years for it to dry for me to be able to do other things with it. So that's why I momentarily paused. I really enjoyed the lines way more than I did the gentle curves. I think it works better, it looks more interesting, it focuses the eyes much better. And if I do a map again, which I think I might end up doing maybe later on this year because I love doing it so much, I might actually try for a full-on painting or colouring experience. I might colour rather than paint because I think it might take a little bit too long for me, but I certainly and definitely going to try this again. Maybe I might do a odd map, maybe of one of my favourite fantasy places, or do something like that, because it might be just nice to have a standalone map that just looks really pretty. Because I don't know about you, but I really oddly love maps, if you couldn't already tell, and I just love kind of the medieval aspect of putting in so many wondrous things. And I didn't really do that here because, again, time constraints, and I didn't want to overdo it. Right, it looks like we're about ready to show it all off. So let's begin at the very first page. So of course we're starting with our title page, which is April, and that's what the flags mean. Then we have my tracking page with books on the left, audiobooks on the right. Then we have my Tabur and my reading page, which I really love. I love how it all works, and again the flags look really well. And of course my last page, where I fixed all the bits that I had go missing, or rather hadn't done. Thank you for watching today, and I hope you have a really good month with your bullet journaling too, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.